Novel titled, Forgotten Cries Voices, tracing the painful slave trade path in Ghana. The history of slavery is a dark and painful chapter in the story of humanity. Ghana, a West African country, experienced some of the most agonizing forms of enslavement. In this book, we delve into the organization and arrangement of the slave trade within Ghana. The slave market was a dehumanizing institution where human beings were treated as commodities. Slaves were examined like animals, inspected for flaws, and reduced to objects. This commodification stripped them of their dignity and worth. Slaves were captured during raids, wars, and kidnappings. They were lured into traps with false promises, and the psychological trauma inflicted was immense. Slaves endured unimaginable maltreatment in slave castles. They were crowded into small cells, physically abused, and subjected to poor hygiene conditions. Rape was common, and diseases spread rapidly. Missionaries used Christianity to control and subjugate slaves. Slaves were forced to attend church services where they were taught that their enslavement was God's will and that they were inferior beings. The infamous Store of No Return marked the finality of a slave's fate. On board ships, slaves endured overcrowding, lack of sanitation, and physical abuse. Slaves faced further maltreatment at the hands of plantation owners, who saw them as property to be exploited for profit. By examining the atrocities committed against innocent human beings in Ghana during the era of slavery, we hope to honor their memory and bring attention to a history that must never be forgotten or repeated. Ghana played a significant role in the transatlantic slave trade for approximately 150 years. Initially, Europeans traded gold, but by the 1500s, the demand for slaves increased. About 10 million slaves were transported from West Africa to the Americas and the Caribbean. The slave trade had a profound impact on Ghanaian communities. Families were torn apart, and the loss of population had long-lasting social, cultural, and economic consequences. The remnants of the slave trade can still be seen in Ghana, particularly in Cape Coast Castle and Elmina Castle. These castles were used to imprison slaves before their journey across the Atlantic. In 2019, Ghana marked the Year of Return, 400 years since the first slaves from Ghana arrived in Virginia, USA. The history of slavery is a painful chapter in humanity's story. Ghana's experience serves as a reminder of the atrocities committed and the importance of remembering and learning from the past. For further reading, visit pupilslibrary.com and readonline.us by Alexander Afree.